Hi, I'm Stephanie and I'm from the ADHD Advocate, and we are now at the end of week 4 of the ADHD Awareness Month lives, where this week we've been focusing on academic success, so ADHD in the context of education. Now, today I will be speaking to Louise Goldsmith from English Exam Tutor, and we're going to be talking about ADHD, how it presents in students when you're tutoring them, when they're revising, and how to engage them, I guess both when you're tutoring them, as well as obviously in terms of them being able to do the study, keep motivated in order to show what it is they know. They probably know quite a lot, I'm sure. But I'm going to leave it to Louise to introduce herself, and then I'll ask a few questions. Hey, Louise.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, so I'm an English exam tutor. I specialise in GCSE English Literature and Language tuition and exam preparation. But I have worked in schools on and off for about 20 years. I was a head of year for 4 years, and second in charge of department. So I've had a lot of experience of working with a large number of students, and a significant number of those with different learning challenges, one of which being ADHD. So the kind of struggles that an ADHD student might face that neurotypical students might not, I say might not, is organisation of ideas. So that's the main problem. But to be honest with you, that's an issue for all students. That's what I work on. Even students who might be deemed neurotypical, who end up with 2 level 9s in English literature and language, still have to organise their ideas. And sadly, it's not something I think that's taught enough as a discrete skill, and so that translates over to other subjects. So parents often feed back to me that when we work on English essay writing skills, that then the students end up doing better in history, geography, any of the subjects where you end up having to write extended pieces. Even maths, you have to decode the question and organise your ideas. So once we get a question, we highlight keywords. So we're making sure we're actually answering the question, not the question we'd like to be answering. And then planning. There's a number of ways you could do that. Some students like just do, I call it brain dumping. So just get your ideas down. So not kind of dancing around, pin them down, and then start prioritizing them and grouping them. Or listing, I quite like just bullet pointing, or even like a little flow chart of ideas. Once we've done that, we need to establish what I call it umbrella idea. I keep changing the term for this. It was, I think, an idea last year. What is your overall argument? And then under that argument, what are your, I always say three subpoints. But the whole time, those 3 subpoints need to be feeding back to the main argument. And then you've got a clear line of argument going through. The other aspect of it is to make sure you're hitting the mark scheme, because you can write a superb essay, really clear line of argument, but let's say you forget to refer to context, you're going to drop 20% of the marks. So that's another side, and it's a matter of practice. So let's say we've got a GCSE text and we're nearing either mocks or GCSEs or even stage 1, just making sure that we follow the same process over and over again, so it becomes second nature, the process I've just talked through, really. So students are then ready. It shouldn't be the case that they look at the question, pick up a pen and off they go. That's not going to be a recipe for success.
Yeah, you've got a nail on the head in terms of too many ideas, because that's obviously with ADHD, just there's so much noise and they had so many possibilities. ADHDers can often see avenues and ways to go that neurotypicals can't. So it's just that overwhelm that can kind of paralyze them even.
Yeah, I mean, I've got students who have moments of brilliance, and I say brilliance when they respond. I'm thinking of a particular student, absolute brilliance, but it's kind of all over the place. Now, the good news is that, and we're working on that, it's the boring stuff, isn't it? It's the pinning it down. We all want to be doing the great ideas, but the good news is if we have solid foundations, then we've got room to jump up and make these really original, highly perceptive points. And I really don't want to ever rein that in, ever. That must happen. But it's no good doing it if the examiner doesn't understand what you're trying to say. And with writing, so that's analytical writing. When it comes to actual imaginative writing or non-fiction writing, which students have to do for English GCSE, they have to write 2 pieces of extended writing, 1 fiction, 1 non-fiction. The mark scheme's so clear about this. I examined this year for the non-fiction paper for AQA, and I was just speaking to students yesterday actually about this. If you're not clear, if you keep jumping around different ideas, you cannot get band 3, which means nothing to you at the moment. There are 4 bands. They loosely translate to GCSE levels, but kind of not. Everything's put together at the end. Now, band 3, if you don't get band 3, you're beginning to look at the lower bands, actually. And these are students who are amazing. But if it's not clear that you can't give the higher bands. So we always start from a place of solid foundations. I suppose it's like tethering something down, isn't it? Like a kite or something, you tether it, and then you've got room to kind of explore it and really imagine. And you must be imaginative, because, and you know, worst case scenario, let's say it's not as structured as we would love, but you still come up with perceptive ideas. There is room to be rewarded for that. The exam board have always been really clear about that, that if it's exhibited, you reward it, but it might be the lower end of that top band.
Such a shame.
Yeah, we're looking for perfection, aren't we, in a sense? So if we can try and be structured and imaginative, that's perfect.
It's so hard, isn't it? Like for ADHDs, particularly, you know, we tend to kind of be black or white. It's very hard to moderate, to find that middle ground.
Yes.
What we do find is when ADHDs pull back, motivation also gets lost, which also means that that creativity, they can't access it anymore if they're kind of thinking, oh, I need to fit into here, here, here. They start to lose that imagination. And then, yeah, have you noticed that, and kind of what do you do? What could help with that?
I think keep the imagination, but it's a skill, unfortunately, we do have to learn. You know, we've got to order ideas. So I guess what I do is I go overboard with organization, because I know it doesn't come naturally. So I'm, you know, okay, it's got to be 3 ideas. I've got to come up with, so I keep following the same process, but then the cool stuff can happen afterwards. But almost like you're training yourself for it to become second nature. I appreciate what you mean by it, you know, the thought of that feels quite boring, doesn't it? But
practice it enough, right? It's like any
yeah,
kind of, is that the type of, is that a framework? It's kind of like what we see with ADHD is at school, you know, when they've got a structure, you know, they tend to do better because they're not having to choose, right? And
and there's so, as you were saying, because their minds are busy, they've got so many ideas, but you've only got 45 minutes to write, and no one's expecting you to cover everything. So you've got to, like, it's a bit, I call it pick and mix, because I love food. So you like picking the ones you want. Sure, you want all of it, but let's pick the ones that you think you're going to enjoy the most and explore that.
Love that.
And that idea, the way that you approach a question could be different to someone else's, and you could both get really high marks. They don't have to be. That's the beauty of English. Sometimes that's crippling, that idea, for people. They're like, particularly mathematical people, they're like, but I don't like the idea that, you know, there isn't a correct answer.
Exactly.
But I like both. I'm unusual. I love maths and I love art as well. So I've kind of come up with a process for students, which I think kind of blend the 2 in together quite nicely. Usually with English, we're all a bit arty, aren't we, and out there, but I quite like having structure. So
order. Yeah, and we find that as well. Yeah, the ADHD is that we coach very much at having a structure, coming up with a process where they can then allow themselves to be creative within that framework, but have that kind of security that they're being reined, you know, they're reined in and they're being kind of focused or channeled.
Yeah, but never at the sacrifice of brilliance. You know, we need that. We've got to have that. I don't want to dampen that at all. But it's frustrating for students if they've got these amazing ideas, but they just can't communicate it, or sentences are running on like 5 or 6 lines and no one really understands what's going on by the end of it. It actually probably suggests that the thought isn't completely thought through as well. So yes, you've got that little amazing insight, but if you unpick it a little bit, the foundations aren't too solid. But that comes with revision, lots of revisions. So you go into the exam knowing what you're going to argue, so it is rock solid. But if you go in without planning, without following a process of 3 points, overriding argument, you're just going to dance all over the place. And there might be bits that are amazing, but it's going to be difficult for the examiner to unpick it.
Yeah, no, so I mean, I love it. I love what you do for ADHDers and obviously non-ADHDers as well. And it sounds very much like a similar to a coaching approach as well, in terms of helping people, helping, the student get clear. There are thoughts there, there's insights, but then they can't quite formulate. And so I'm sure.
And we know they're going to, I've got no research about this up except my experience. I imagine people with ADHD are more likely to come up with more perceptive original comments. And luckily that is in the top band for English mark scheme. It says perceptive, but it does also say detailed, meaning you've got to explain yourself a little bit.
And then it's how do you rein yourself in though? Because then we go overboard with the explaining sometimes and go into too much detail.
Yeah.
The eye on the question, on the why. Yeah.
Timing. So, I mean, you said to me, didn't you, about time. This is brilliant. Put the 45 minutes on and 3 points. So go, okay, in 15 minutes, I'm going to swap point. 50 minutes, I'm swapping point. 50 minutes. So I do a lot of work on timing, let's move on. Even if they're only just starting the course, I say, okay, that's how much time you would have had, but you've only just started, so you're going to take longer. But just so you know, this is the pace that you want to work at. And being not another, can I just talk about anxiety a minute as well with revision?
Yeah, definitely. But you're hitting I guess that's why you produce such fantastic outcomes for students, because particularly ADHD, because you really, really, really get it, because the time challenge as well.
I remember being at school and doing A-level English and not understanding what they wanted. I distinctly remember that. And then suddenly it clicked. It's like, oh, you want me to do that? Sure. Then the results go up. But it's that feeling of not quite, and I have that time and time again. I've had students who felt very lost with English, and I understand. And then once they kind of told the process over and over, this is what they're looking for, this is what it helps. In terms of anxiety, having got I've got obviously a teenage daughter myself with ADHD. I've learned the hard way that if we leave revision right till the end, that's a painful experience for everybody involved. And and that's not because they can't do it, but it's because you explain it, Steph, you'll know better than me. Why is it put off till the last minute when you know that it's going to be a huge source of stress?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, well, they call it procrastination, but again, it's that kind of freezing, don't know where to start. And it's only when that urgency, when the choice is removed, that the brain kind of is forced to kind of kick into action, engage, but often too late. Although there are some ADHDs that, I've coached students that have got into law, medicine, that literally study at the last minute. But I guess they had the luxury of maybe that, the IQ is crazy. Yeah.
It really depends on the student, doesn't it? Because some students have, as you say, almost photographic memory, so they can blitz it at the end. And actually they thrive on the anxiety, I guess, because you get that adrenaline rush, and that's what's going to give you the interest to do it, because otherwise it feels very boring.
There are others.
I would worry about younger students, the anxiety that can build up over time, because it's very rare I've ever come across a student who doesn't want to do well.
Yeah.
I mean, they really have to have checked out for quite extreme reasons. If someone literally doesn't care, I've never come. But now and again,
it's because they care. No, they care too much. That's why the ones that check out is because they've cared too much, haven't had your help or our help, and and then they just feel hopeless, and the only choice that they have is to not care anymore.
Is the confidence as well. It kind of upsets me that it doesn't take much to make a student feel good. You're like, well, that should be happening all the time. It's very easy for me to say now I've stepped out of the classroom. I've done my time and I wasn't perfect, at time period 5 with 30 kids in a class, or head of year with 270. It's a lot of work, and I really admire people who do that for really challenging situations, teachers. So I'm not downplaying them at all. I'm really not. And we've both been governors, so we've seen it from that end as well, structurally. But I'm still going to say it, but I don't think it takes much to give students a bit of confidence. And I think sometimes that's lacking in teaching as a general rule, that people don't build on the things that are going well. Even a little, it doesn't take my little reference. Yes, that's amazing, that point. Let's build on that. Because if you feel rubbish about yourself, you're just not going to, as you say, you check out.
Yeah, particularly ADHD is with rejection sensitive dysphoria.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's like a recipe for disaster. We see it in the workplace as well. And the opposite is recognition responsive euphoria. That's what I think Dr. Dodson came up with that, or maybe Dr. Hallowell. But that's the opposite of rejection sensitive dysphoria. And what you're describing is that recognition responsive euphoria, to generate that in the child and the student.
Oh, so that's when you praise, and like a little dog, you praise a dog, and then they'll want to do more, and they'll want to do more. Not too good. Dogs are way more well behaved, but yeah. So that idea that you give a little bit of a treat, and then
they want,
and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be much. It really, it's not like you have to sit there for an hour, praise. It's like literally that point was brilliant. Build on that. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing well, as well. So it's really important, I think, as an educator, to say to a student, yes, you're doing that bit, or that was brilliant, just do that again, because that really worked, that process.
Yeah, the feedback loop, and this comes back in coaching as well, because it's that lack of specificity, the ambiguity is just really kind of kills that motivation, and that
for anybody, if you don't know, if you're not led properly, if you don't know what you're doing. But these are and that's another point, which is about, these are life skills, aren't they? They're not just about exams. So, and I'm aware of that. I call myself English Exam Tutor, but I see myself as like an educator. I'm just looking at my 3 lines: inspire, engage, achieve. And that's life, though, isn't it? That's not just, I don't want students to think that the only important thing is that they do really well in exams. It's not always about that. For some students it is, if they want to do medicine and things like that, but maybe they don't, and they're the generation who could go and do other things, couldn't they? So it's life skills.
Definitely. And just that love of learning. So I've spoken to some of Louise's students that have been through her programs, and they've gone from places where a lot of children with ADHD not wanting to read, hating reading, going from that. Literally, one student is now like studying literature, and I remember having a chat to her, and she was talking about all these amazing books that she's read, and the love of the engagement that I saw just was phenomenal. And that's what Louise does really well. So what we'll do, Louise, if you've got like some details on your program, your tutoring program, and we can share those.
What would be the best way to, shall I just email that to you?
Yeah, just email it to me and I'll put it in the comments on the Facebook.
Or should I just say them? Okay.
Yeah, Facebook page. But no, say it as
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you glitched then. What did you say?
Okay. Yeah, no, we'll put the comments, we'll put it in the comment section on the Facebook page, but also you can also email admin@theadhdadvocate.com for Louise's details, and you're up on the website anyway, so one of our referral partners. So
yes.
Get through to Louise on our website as well. But Louise, thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. Thanks for everything you do for students who struggle as well. It's life-changing, so thank you.
Yeah, no, we've got to do it together, right? You don't want to do this stuff alone, and that's why interdependence, not independence, everyone. Interdependence, yeah? Yeah. Thanks, Louise.
Excellent. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.